Chapter 8: France and the Fur Trade. France joins in. In the early 1500s, Spain was mining gold and silver in Mexico and Peru. Portugal ruled the spice trade in the Indian Ocean. England had set John Cabot to look for the Northwest Passage. The King of France, Francis I, did not want to be left behind. In 1524, the king hired an Italian explorer named Giovanni da Verrazano to explore North America and look for the Northwest Passage. Verrazano's brother, a cartographer, sailed with him. North America was new to the Europeans and had not been mapped. One of the goals of Verrazano's expedition was to create accurate maps of the Atlantic coast. Verrazano was the first European to sail up the Atlantic coast to present-day United States, from North Carolina to Newfoundland. When he sailed into New York Bay, he noted that it was a deep water harbor. Today, the entrance to New York Harbor is spanned by the Verrazano Narrows Bridge, named in his honor. Verrazano did not make it back to Europe. He was killed on an island in the Caribbean. The French king was sad to learn about his fate, but he was determined that France benefit from the riches found in the Americas. The king was also determined to find the Northwest Passage, but who could help him achieve this goal? Jacques Cartier. In 1534, France's king asked Jacques Cartier, a French sea captain, to explore the coast of North America. Cartier sailed to Newfoundland, where he encountered English and Spanish fishing fleets. This area of water off the coast of Newfoundland was a rich fishing ground. Cartier continued his voyage exploring the coast of Labrador and the Gulf of St. Lawrence. At the time, Cartier did not realize that the Gulf of St. Lawrence was in fact the mouth of a mighty river. Instead of exploring further, he claimed the land around the Gulf for France and returned to Europe. 1 year later, Cartier returned to North America. This time he sailed up the St. Lawrence River in his log. Cartier recorded his thoughts on the land he saw, describing the tree-covered territory as beautiful. Cartier visited a Native American village on an island in the St. Lawrence. He climbed a hill and named it Mount Royal. This site eventually became part of the Canadian city of Montreal. During the winter, Cartier's men became sick with scurvy. The snow was 4 feet deep. Many of Cartier's men died from the cold and sickness. Cartier gave up hope of ever returning to France. The friendship between Cartier and the Native Americans saved him and his men. The Native Americans taught the French how to brew a drink made from evergreen trees. Today, we know that such a brew is rich in vitamin C. It cured the French explorers of their scurvy. In the spring, Cartier and his men returned to France. Cartier returned on a third voyage to what is now Canada. The French king wanted a colony in North America, but French people could not be easily persuaded to become settlers in this cold, distant land. Instead, the king released prisoners from jail and set them to settle in North America. The colony was doomed from the start. The prisoners were happy to get out of jail, but not eager to work in such difficult conditions. Supply ships were late in arriving. Jacques Cartier was forced to give up and return to France. Over the next 60 years, France was racked by political troubles and wars. Little attention was paid to the land Cartier claimed for France. Champlain and New France. During the 1500s, French ships did venture to the waters off Newfoundland to fish. As a result, trade relationships slowly developed between the French fishermen and the local Native Americans. The Native Americans were eager to have tools and other metal goods. The French wanted to trade furs, particularly beaver skins, which were in great demand in Europe for making men's hats. The development of fur trade in North America led to a renewed effort by the French to establish colonies in the land they called New France. A key figure in the settlement of New France was an explorer named Samuel de Champlain. In 1603, Champlain sailed to New France for the first time. He explored the coast of Maine and Nova Scotia. He founded his first settlement in Nova Scotia. In 1608, Champlain moved the settlement to the site of Quebec City, on the banks of the St. Lawrence River. At a point where the river narrows, Champlain built a town on the heights with a view of the river. New France grew differently than the English colonies. At first, very few settlers came to New France. The winters were long and hard. Farming was difficult because the growing season was so short. Those who did settle in New France were mostly rugged adventurers. For a while, that suited the French government. The colony made a profit, and the most part of the colony's few settlers did not need a great deal of supervision. It is probably true to say that the settlers in New France also dealt with the Native Americans living nearby somewhat differently than the English did in the colonies to the south. English colonists forcefully pushed Native Americans off land they had lived on for generations. In New France, the relationship between the fur traders and the Native American tribes was more peaceful. The French had not tried to conquer the Native Americans, but instead had focused on trade. The fur trade also resulted in further exploration. Fur traders canoed and portaged farther and farther into the North American wilderness. In 1673, an expedition led by Jacques Marquette and Louis Joliet became the first European expedition to reach the Mississippi River. In 1682, a French explorer with imposing name of René Robert Cavelier, Sieur de La Salle, sailed down the Mississippi River to the Gulf of Mexico. La Salle claimed the land drained by the Mississippi for the King of France. By 1700, New France was a sizable empire with hardly any settlers. There were only about 10,000 Europeans in the entire area. The fur trade was profitable, true, but if a competitor appeared, France would have a hard time defending its lands. And that competitor was right next door. England and France were rivals in Europe. They would soon become rivals in North America as well.